Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. My husband and I have been married for over 16 years and have been blessed with 3 beautiful children, 2 girls and a boy, and have been taking good care of our family ever since. We split the chores evenly and equally to serve everybody and allow happiness, development, equality, and communication to flourish in our household. Our way and living style is very moderate. Our financial state is entirely independent, but it also isn't the one that would allow us fancy or extravagant vacations. We live on an average budget and we provide most of our children's needs and required luxuries. Our lives are average and mediocre to say the least, and quite honestly, other than the rare few arguments my husband and I have had in the past couple of months because of financial differences, our state of being has been very stable ever since we got married all those years ago. Well, all those years ago, as in 10 years ago, my mother-in-law was quite the source of problems and arguments for my husband and me. But ever since she stopped talking to all of us roughly around 10 years ago, everything has been relatively smooth and problems, and quite frankly, I would have left that on had she not contacted us a few days ago asking us to join her for Thanksgiving. That's it. Just calls us up after 10 years, after not talking to us, and asks us to attend her Thanksgiving dinner. My husband and I had a bit of a dispute about it, as I didn't want to go. I was wildly convinced that this was just one manipulative, toxic invitation. When my husband, on the other hand, was blindsided by his emotions, wanting to reunite with his mother after all of those years. Although I couldn't really blame him for wanting a connection with her, I also remember her quite vividly. I hardly remember anything about her that would insinuate that she would ever do anything to change anything about herself. He still argued that we should give her the benefit of the doubt and attend her Thanksgiving meal to give her a chance to see her children and redeem herself had she actually changed. Nevertheless, we decided to participate in the Thanksgiving meal and see where things went. If anything went wrong that evening, we would never ever attempt to talk to her or respond to any of her attempts to contact us. We arrived at her house and saw that there were plenty of cars parked outside mother-in-law's door, which insinuated that many of the other family members, such as sister, brother-in-law, or maybe even father-in-law, who's actually divorced for the second time after his marriage with her. After mustering up the courage and finishing up our breathwork in preparation for what was to come, we finally got out and headed for the house. We were immediately greeted by the scent of carefully crafted, beautifully cooked dishes. Everything about the mother-in-law's demeanor in the first 10 minutes we arrived was as remote as it could be from hostile and disrespectful or menacing. She was very loving, welcoming, and homely, to say the least. After those 10 minutes, we started to notice a change in her behavior, a radical one, might I add. She started becoming very critical of the things everybody did. I could sort of sense that her narcissistic ways were returning to her as she was criticizing my children and the way they sat and spoke and looked at the elders, or the way I walked or talked or placed the dishes in the wrong positions, or the way my husband was not fulfilling his marital duties or fatherly figure requirements, not yelling at me or disciplining his children at a family gathering. She was criticizing every single thing that made our family the way it is, and that we carefully crafted to make it as healthy and communicative as possible. She was trying to infest how I raised my children and handled my kids with her narcissistic, manipulative, and toxic bearings. Her abnormal behavior was not only directed to me, but she was making sure to insult and criticize or demean whatever thing landed in her vision first, whether it was my kids, my sister-in-law, or my brother-in-law, or anybody else. And for a few more minutes, we sat at the dinner table and everybody was already pretty annoyed that she had shown her true colors so quickly. And I could also sense that everybody was waiting impatiently to just leave this hostile environment. Once we were all seated and dinner was served, she clanked her glass to everyone's attention and informed us that she was telling us something significant, something that would change the railing of our lives towards the right direction, something that would make our lives finally complete, which couldn't have been farther from the truth. She informed us that 10 years ago she had fallen ill to cancer, gotten bedridden, and wasn't able to contact or talk to any of us. For a moment, I started feeling pained, hearing her story and why she stopped talking to us all of those years ago. She then backed it up by telling us that she was now back, and she was humiliated and disappointed in the way we handled our lives after she was gone. She was dissatisfied with how we raised our children and how our families came to be. She basically made sure to insult and criticize everyone, and everything that we did made us the way we are, only by one all around the table. She finished it up by saying that she was now back and stronger than ever, and she would get involved and change us back into the right course. She promised to be in our lives every single day. Not every single hour, as there were so many of us, but nevertheless, every single day. She would be there to correct and guide our actions towards the virulent direction that she referred to as righteous. Children would be in their position and the wives would do their jobs, and the husbands would be in their righteous place. She was trying to push this agenda on us that every person seated at the table was wrong in the way they handled life, and that she was our knight and savior ready to help guide us back into good, proper ways. The unhealthy, toxic, narcissistic, manipulative, and destructive course that she had always run her family with. She spoke her final words of guidance with a smile splattered across her face. I noticed how everybody around the table was getting extremely annoyed with what she was saying. The daughters most specifically felt excessively attacking, as she was specifically targeting the family's women. After our conversation, as soon as she went quiet, all you could hear around the table was the clattering of the plates and the chewing of the children and sometimes the cries of the babies. But as soon as that was over, the table was cleared out, everybody picked up their children and their belongings and walked out the door before one could even spell the word beginning. My husband and I stayed last and said goodbye to her, informing her that there would be no need for her to show up at our home because we most likely wouldn't be there. We were okay with the way we had built our family, and we were willing to live the rest of our lives just like so. And if she were to try and contact or come into our lives at the last minute to derail any of that, we would make sure she would never be able to see her grandchildren or talk to them ever again. We informed her that we understood her situation. We would allow our children to see her once a week, as long as there was no harmful or toxic change in behavior shown in them when they hung out with her. After that, we said goodbye one last time and walked out the door without any intention of returning to any future family gatherings, and by the looks of it, neither did anyone else. I feel sorry for her and how she has to live her life, and I can't say that I entirely blame her because she could just be mentally unstable. Nevertheless, that energy and way of thinking are not something I would like to have around my children, and so my decision to stay away from her as possible was made. Not the a-hole. When it comes to narcissism, once they start exuding that God complex energy, it never goes away no matter how many years pass or how much character development they experience. It's a good thing to minimize contact with her and control the influence she has on the kids. You really don't want any of grandma's thought process rubbing off on them, as it can spiral really quickly. Not the a-hole. Totally agree with the family's decision to leave and not come back. All those years later, nothing changed about her, that she wasn't even able to contain herself for a few minutes. There's no way she had changed all that much, and allowing her power and positions again will only make her worse and cause more problems. Keep her away from the kids and express yourselves fearlessly. Not the a-hole. Keep the kids away. Kids latch onto the adults around them's attitude really quickly, and it sticks. And you don't want this type of behavior or way of thinking to become that of your child. Grandparents have more influence than we prefer to credit them for, and yours just aren't the ones you need to keep with your kids. Next story. I, 26 male, and my girlfriend, 25 female, have been together for 6 years. I think she's pregnant. I keep encouraging her to take the test, and she refuses. For the past month or so, she's been saying that she doesn't feel good. She's been extremely tired, fatigued, complaining of back pain and headaches, feeling bloated, and overall just not feeling well. I asked if she thought she should call a doctor, not necessarily because I thought she was pregnant, but just out of concern for her health in general. She said no and figured it was allergies or her period was supposed to start. Her period is very regular. I mean, I can damn near track it. She said that she's always been this way and has rarely been more than a day or two off. So when she was supposed to start earlier this month and didn't, she seemed a bit concerned. When she was a week late, I pointed out that she hadn't been feeling herself and maybe she should take a pregnancy test. She said there was no way she was pregnant and she was probably just re-regulating or something like that. I said taking a test wouldn't hurt, just to be sure, but she wasn't having it, so I dropped it. She has a lot of fears and phobias, one of them being emetophobia, which is the fear of vomit. It's something she struggled with since she was a kid. Usually, even someone around her seeing they feel sick will send her into full-blown panic mode. Thursday night, she was supposed to visit her grandmother, so when I came home after work, I was surprised to see her laying on the couch. I said, "You're home early," and she told me she didn't go. When I asked her why, she told me that while driving home, she felt nauseous and decided not to go. I asked her if she was okay and questioned the nausea. She told me it was nothing, probably something she ate. Being nauseous for any reason would normally cause her to freak out, and now she's being so nonchalant about it. She again blew it off like it was nothing. I again mentioned taking a pregnancy test. She has all these symptoms. Why not just take a test and find out? If she is, she is. If she's not, she's not. And then we can put our minds at ease. We went back and forth a little bit. Basically, her argument is that she's not pregnant. There's no way she's pregnant, and she wishes that I would just drop it. She stormed off to bed. I slept in the guest room, and that was that. She has been giving me the cold shoulder since Thursday night. We're usually great about communication. This is probably the worst argument we've ever had, and I don't know what to do. Do I apologize? I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, but maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. I'm not trying to push her, I'm just worried. If she is pregnant, then she has to get the proper care. If she's not, then there's something else going on health-wise that she should get checked. Edit. I hit the character limit when I submitted this, and in my shortened version, I guess I left some details out. But I need to clear this up. We've talked about kids before, and as far as I know, we both want them. It was a conversation we had even before we started dating, but that's another story for another time. Everything was fine before this, and we both seem to be on the same page in terms of our future. If she is pregnant, she's not waiting until it's too late to do anything, thus trapping me in the relationship. I love her more than anything. I'm not leaving her whether she's pregnant or not. No a-holes here. You just want to take care of her and make sure she isn't sick at its core. Honestly, it sounds like she is pregnant how you're describing it, but that is probably terrifying to her. Taking the test would force her to face that fear head on, and it is something she will have to come to herself. Maybe reassuring her that you're there for her and will support her throughout if she is pregnant, or just addressing that you know it is scary for her would help ease her fears. She needs to feel secure and cared for in what is likely a very scary time, especially with how pregnancy out of wedlock is viewed for some families. Best of luck. No a-holes here, you aren't wrong, although you may be taking the wrong approach. Your girlfriend could be pregnant, her period could be late, or some other health issue could be going on. She may well be resisting taking a pregnancy test because she thinks she might be and is scared to find out for sure. Fear can often make people pull back, become defensive, and go into denial. You may have better luck focusing on reassuring her that you love her and whatever happens, you are there for her. Apologize for pushing her and give her a few days. If she's still sick, then emphasize that you're worried and think she should see a doctor. Offer to go with her or do anything she needs. Make sure it is clear you're speaking from a place of love and concern. You've been with your girlfriend for 6 years, so you know her best. If any of this advice sounds like it won't work with her, go with your gut instead. Not the a-hole. To be fair, you're as entitled as her to know the answer, but it kinda sounds like she's terrified to find out. Defo not the a-hole, but I think you may need to reassure her that you're there no matter what, and that there's no wrong answer here. Be aware of what you expect of yourself and what you expect of her before you have the conversation. Emetophobia can in turn end up in a fear of pregnancy, along with all the responsibility it brings that you guys may not have talked about. Either way, good luck, and I hope she feels better soon. Next story. My wife is 2 months pregnant. Yesterday was my birthday. When I went into the kitchen, my wife told me that she was going to work and wouldn't be home until late. She didn't even acknowledge my birthday. I asked her if she had made any breakfast. She usually cooks breakfast for me on my birthday, but she told me to manage with cereal. I thought maybe she wanted to surprise me or something and just kept quiet. My parents, siblings, and friends called me after that to wish me. I cooked lunch for the both of us and drove to my wife's office to spend time with her. I sat in the park opposite her office waiting for her to come out for lunch. I think one of her colleagues saw me waiting for her and informed her because she came down soon after and told me to go back home and not embarrass her in front of her colleagues. I handed her the lunch and asked her to at least have it instead of the cafeteria food. She took it and threw it in the trash. I was hurt and embarrassed, so I immediately left for home. I was really upset by then and no longer wanted to spend time with her. I went to a movie, ate my favorite dinner, then went to the beach for the rest of the evening. When I went back home, my wife surprised me with a cake and a party. My in-laws and my parents were there. I ignored my wife and went back into the room. My mom got mad at me because apparently my wife was crying. I then proceeded to narrate everything that happened that day to everyone present. My mom was the only one to side with my wife because she's pregnant. My wife defended herself, saying that her colleagues were teasing her by calling me a henpecked husband. Now my mom is saying I'm being a baby and that my wife is pregnant and I shouldn't be making her cry. My in-laws and my dad are supporting me. Am I the a-hole? Having a surprise party has nothing to do with throwing the lunch in the garbage. OP stated that wife agreed and knew he would be there. She backtracked when her co-workers made fun of her. These are two separate issues. She made you think she did nothing for your birthday so she could surprise you later. People think that makes the bigger surprise. It doesn't, it just sucks. She's the a-hole for the way she handled lunch. She's the a-hole for not addressing the situation with you later, apologizing for it, and having a normal conversation about it. Also, being pregnant doesn't mean you get to be a jerk and then cry when someone calls you out on it. It's not a get out of jail card for crappy behavior, not the a-hole. Absolutely not the a-hole. Just because she's pregnant doesn't mean you don't have feelings and those feelings aren't valid. Hormones might be the cause of it, but it's not an excuse to be a jerk to your partner. I could understand not making breakfast. It feels funny not to acknowledge your partner's birthday, even if you have something planned for them later. The lunch thing was totally uncalled for and totally would have ruined my day. She shouldn't really give a crap about what her colleagues think, especially if they're using an insult like henpecked. They're people who aren't worth worrying about. Happy belated birthday. I hope you enjoyed the movie. Not the a-hole. You were obviously looking for attention from your wife. She tried to hide your surprise party by hurting you and pretending she forgot your birthday. She was overly mean. Who cares if her friends made fun of her at work? They only did that because they're jealous. She threw the lunch you brought into the trash. She should not have been crying over your reaction. She should be crying over her awful behavior. She ruined your whole birthday and wants to cry since you don't want to see her now. She kind of crapped all over your day and expected you to just be all happy at the end of it. People keep saying that taking her lunch at work is clingy or needy. You can see the side of Reddit that's never been in a relationship with someone that cares about them. Even after she was kind of crappy in the morning, you decided to do something nice for her and she gave you a metaphorical slap in the face. In fact, she said that you embarrassed her. Instead, she openly showed you disdain in front of her colleagues. Regardless, they probably think less of you now, which sucks. I'm glad you had a nice day after the crap that went down, until you got home.